From CNN Center Atlanta, I'm David Goodnow with the latest headline news. Judge Lancito said OJ Simpson's defense team has until Monday to show why it should be allowed to introduce allegations of racism against a key prosecution witness. The defense is seeking to prove LA Police Detective Mark Fuhrman planted a bloody glove at Simpson's estate. Friday, Judge Ito laid out the ground rules for opening statements in Simpson's murder trial. It's expected to begin on Monday. Linda Joyce reports.
Defense attorneys may be able to use one incident in Detective Mark Fuhrman's past involving hostility toward African Americans if they can show some evidence that Fuhrman could have planted a glove at O.J. Simpson's estate. Judge Lancito ruled the defense has until Monday morning to offer the proof. And if they do, then they can bring up an incident that involves a conversation with this woman, Kathleen Bell, who says she heard Fuhrman allegedly express his distaste for interracial couples and how he would fabricate evidence to use against them. Defense attorney Carl Douglas had this reaction to the ruling.
Well, the judge has analyzed the facts, and he has issued a ruling that he thinks is in the best interest of justice. Though we may personally disagree, we will accept his decision and move forward.
In another decision, prosecutors will not be allowed to introduce more than 12 of its witnesses when the trial begins next week. Judge Ito sanctioned prosecutors for failing to turn over the names of witnesses to the defense in a timely manner. Those witnesses include several people from Bloomingdale's in New York who will likely testify that 4 years ago, Nicole Simpson bought a pair of extra-large men's gloves there. Those gloves are similar to the ones found at the crime scene and at O.J. Simpson's estate. They are also some of the key evidence in the case against Simpson. Prosecutors will be able to use those witnesses, just not at the start of the trial. Meanwhile, defense attorney Robert Shapiro told reporters the gloves are indeed central to Simpson's defense.
And we're dealing with a name brand of glove that is sold worldwide and is a very, very popular glove. So the significance of it is going to be something the jury will have to determine.
Another issue that has to be resolved before opening statements can begin on Monday is whether Simpson's first wife, Marguerite, will testify during this trial. Linda Joyce, CNN, Los Angeles.
A Catholic lay group wants the abortion debate to resume on Capitol Hill. The Catholic Campaign for America, which opposes abortion, said scientists know much more about embryology than they did in 1973, the year the landmark Roe v. Wade Supreme Court decision legalized abortion. The group said Congress should hold hearings to set a legal definition of when human life begins. Abortion rights activists oppose government-mandated limits on abortion. The Supreme Court agreed to hear an appeal by a former prisoner who claims federal officials violated his rights just before the 1988 election to stifle a potentially damaging allegation against vice presidential candidate Dan Quayle. Brett Kimberlin claims he sold marijuana to Quayle during the 70s. He planned to make the announcement 4 days before the election, but his news conference was canceled by prison officials. He was placed in special detention 3 times after trying to contact reporters. In 1993, the Justice Department concluded Kimberlin was unfairly disciplined, but there was no conspiracy to silence him. In Florida, the Coast Guard, customs agents, and police teamed up for a drug bust Friday. They seized 120 pounds of cocaine on a Haitian freighter. And off Puerto Rico, a Coast Guard cutter working in tandem with Navy surveillance aircraft seized 1,100 pounds of cocaine. The Coast Guard crew was too busy to attend a ceremony commending its drug-busting work. President Clinton said Mexico's economic crisis is a crisis for the United States as well. He's calling on Congress to pass a financial aid package offering $40 billion in loan guarantees. Some in Congress want the package to include demands for financial reform in Mexico. Others want to see labor and wage reforms. President Clinton said this is no time to get bogged down in debate.
But in the 2 years that I have been here, I have seen an unusual amount of partisan bickering, but it didn't stop us from passing GATT, from dealing with NAFTA, from dealing with the urgent problems in Russia that we confronted when I came here early on, and from pursuing a course in the Middle East that is having a very positive result, from doing any number of other things that were critical to the national interest. And it can't stop us now. We have to do what we always do in these cases. We have to act quickly, act with dispatch, and put the national interest first. That's what we all have to do.
The Senate Foreign Relations Committee is expected to hold a hearing on the rescue package on Thursday. The United States has agreed to allow direct phone calls to North Korea, the last country in the world Americans have been barred from dialing. It's one of several barriers to trade and communication lifted Friday by the State Department. The package is a step toward fulfilling the American end of the deal that ended last year's nuclear crisis. For its part, North Korea promised to revamp its nuclear power system to make it incapable of producing weapons-grade material. House Speaker Newt Gingrich attended a meeting of the Republican National Committee Friday in Washington, and across town, a Democrat National Committee was gathering. Gene Randall reports both are plotting their political strategies.
The Democrats want to try to vilify Newt because they cannot compete in the marketplace of ideas and character assassination. They will stoop to character assassination.
The American people wanted business done differently. That was the message on November 8th. And what Mr. Gingrich has indicated over the past several days is he's not going to change.
Gingrich was Friday's star attraction at the RNC meeting, and he too devoted some time to the book deal and some sarcasm to its mainly Democratic critics.
Now, I know there are important Democrats in this city who would have automatically turned down $4.5 million. They'd have said, I can make too much money at cattle futures.
Gingrich also, once again, sharply rejected any parallels between his situation and that of former Democratic House Speaker Jim Wright, who left Congress after a book controversy of his own.
Jim Wright was a crook. When they investigated Jim Wright, he had to resign.
Meanwhile, the Democratic National Committee was listening to its incoming dual chairman, Dodd of Connecticut and Fowler of South Carolina, describe their mission.
Our first priority is to make sure that the president is reelected.
At the RNC, a different tune.
Today, January 20th, is 2 years to the day before the inauguration of the next Republican president of the United States.
Barber was elected to a new 2-year term as Republican National Chairman, and San Diego was formally approved for the 1996 Republican National Convention. And leaders from both parties, as they leave town this weekend, are giving assurances they are re-energized for the battles that lie ahead. Gene Randall, CNN, Washington.
2 people will be formally charged Saturday with last year's bombing of the Israeli embassy in London. They were among 5 people arrested by Scotland Yard Tuesday. 3 people were released. The attack in July injured 14 people and leveled part of the embassy. 5 people were injured hours later in a second attack at a Jewish charity in London. All the suspects were reported to be Palestinians living in Jordan. A top Russian official is warning the fighting in Chechnya could drag on for years. Rebel troops put up stiff resistance Friday, a day after losing control of the presidential palace. That was a key holdout. Chechnya's rebel leader Dzhokhar Dudayev came out of hiding Friday and pledged to carry on the fight for independence. The relief group Doctors Without Borders braved artillery fire and heavy snow to deliver medical supplies to a hospital in the capital of Grozny. Civilians are continuing to flee that city on foot. Heavy snow has once again trapped travelers on a Himalayan highway. Officials say fresh snow stranded a convoy of 300 cars and buses. Monday, an avalanche knocked cars and buses off a main road in the Kashmir region. Friday, officials said 4,000 people had been rescued after the avalanche, including many who took refuge in a tunnel. The death toll from Tuesday's earthquake in Kobe, Japan has topped 4,600, and hope is fading that the more than 500 people still missing will be found alive. Meteorologists say freezing rain will hit the area Saturday, and heavy rain could continue up to 3 days. Experts fear the wet weather will cause serious health problems for thousands of homeless people living out in the open or in unheated shelters. The rain could also trigger landslides and collapse already badly damaged buildings. Israeli helicopter gunships fired on suspected militant Muslim hideouts in southern Lebanon Friday for the second straight day. Those attacks were in apparent retaliation for a guerrilla ambush Thursday on an Israeli army patrol. 7 Palestinians were believed killed in the shootout. Radical Palestinians and Hezbollah guerrillas have launched a series of attacks aimed at disrupting the Arab-Israeli peace process. The final status of Jerusalem is an especially contentious issue. Gerald Kessel reports.
Satisfaction for the newly installed Jerusalem Mufti, Muslim spiritual head of the city's Palestinians. he's welcoming a rare diplomatic victory for Yasser Arafat, preferred by fellow Muslims over Jordan's King Hussein in the ongoing inter-Arab battle over who's worthy to represent Muslim interests in the Holy City. Meeting in Morocco, the high-powered Jerusalem Committee of the 52-nation Islamic Conference backed Palestinian rights in the city. The committee vowed to help Palestinians regain control of Jerusalem from Israel.
Exactly the right position. Jerusalem is a part of Palestine. There's no difference between the political and the religious sovereignty over the town.
This flies in the face of the pilot flying this aircraft over Jerusalem's holy site, Jordan's King Hussein. During 3 decades of Israeli control, Hussein has retained, from outside, a custodian role over the central shrines, the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, Islam's third holiest sites. He won Israeli recognition for that special status when last summer the two countries made peace. Hussein, who claims direct descendancy from the Prophet Muhammad, recently spent millions on a golden refurbishing of the dome, but Jordan's role was rebuffed by the conference. Israel dismisses the conference decision as entirely irrelevant.
The fate of Jerusalem will be decided in Jerusalem and nowhere else. Jerusalem is a closed issue politically. It is part of Israel. It is the capital of Israel.
The Israelis say the deal with King Hussein is the limit of their concessions. Religious sovereignty in the city for others, but no political control other than theirs. But the Mufti insists this aspect of the Hussein-Rabin deal has now been nullified. The Jordanian-Israeli agreement on Jerusalem was stillborn, he says. Now what our Muslim brothers have done is to reaffirm the just Palestinian rights in the city. At a planned meeting in Cairo next week, Arafat will seek to ease the snub against Hussein. But this is a meeting which has been postponed.